It's 4 o'clock. The top stories live on 7 News. Gun scare at a Rose Bay high school. A teenager in custody. Petrol pumps run dry. The Prime Minister appoints a fuel task force. Donald Trump turns on Israel over strikes on major gas hubs in the Middle East. Radio ratings reveal Kyle and Jackie O's swan song. Welcome home. The Danish royals revisit Queen Mary's roots. And a blow for the Dragons. A rising star rushed to hospital.
Live from Sydney, this is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good afternoon. We begin with breaking news. Police have swarmed an eastern suburbs high school after a boy was shot by a BB gun. As Andrew Denny reports, another student is right now in custody.
Well, they were a tense few moments this afternoon for parents, students and teachers here at Rose Bay Secondary School when police were called here this afternoon to reports of a student with a gun. That was about 1:45. Officers arriving quickly and lockdown procedures going into place. Fortunately, it was soon realised that this was a much more minor incident. A 15-year-old boy was in possession of just a BB gun and he'd fired a pellet at the back of one of his classmates, hitting him but not causing any injuries. Police have arrested that teenager and are currently speaking with him. That BB gun was also seized. No word if or what charges might be laid over this incident, but certainly some very relieved parents this afternoon here at school pickup.
The New South Wales Premier has called for calm as several petrol stations across the city ran dry today. Chris Minns says there's still more than enough fuel in the city, but it's demand that is draining the tanks. Inga Nielsen reports.
Good afternoon. The petrol pinch is closing in on Sydney siders. The city's first petrol stations have run out of fuel. All bowsers were dry at Yugo, Carlingford this morning, and at Borkham Hills there was no E10. They're among 38 petrol stations in New South Wales that have reported being out of fuel. Deliveries later today meant some were back up and running, a relief for motorists, but many remain fearful this is just a glimpse of worse to come.
Too expensive. Last time I paid $1.48. Today, $2.30. Very expensive.
This petrol station at Sydenham has told customers to pay before you pump to reduce the risk of drive-offs as homes and small businesses begin to feel the pinch. Dean Kropp from Barefoot Charters says many businesses are being forced to absorb the cost of higher fuel prices, fearful they'll lose customers as people reduce discretionary spend.
It's a massive kick and it's such a huge jump in price that we're trying to push people to the sailing cat that will use less fuel rather than using the bigger boats.
But the Premier is defiant, saying there isn't a supply problem. He's pleading with people not to panic buy.
The Prime Minister has appointed a national coordinator calling on the states and territories to get behind a new plan to tackle the nation's growing fuel crisis. Live to our political reporter, Isabel Mullen in Canberra. Hello, Izzy. How will this work?
And good afternoon. Well, Anthony Albanese wants there to be a single point of contact at the federal level so any fuel supply issues can be tackled from the top down. To do that, he's essentially created a new job, appointing Anthea Harris as the head of this new task force which will manage fuel supply issues. She is the former CEO of the Australian Energy Regulator. He says she has plenty of experience. The PM holding that national cabinet from Hobart, premiers and chief ministers dialing in from around the country.
It is the states and territories that are responsible for distribution within their jurisdictions. Every state and territory will appoint someone to work with Ms Harris. To have a single point of contact was a common sense response. There is not less fuel in Australia today than there was 3 weeks ago.
Meanwhile, the ACCC, the consumer watchdog, has launched a major investigation into fuel retailers Ampol, BP and Viva Energy amid allegations of anti-competitive behaviour as diesel supply issues emerge in rural areas. Angus Taylor, the opposition leader, out south of Sydney this morning talking about some of these issues and inflation at a cafe.
We should be taking it very seriously. The government's not on top of it. Now it's asking the ACCC to fix the situation. The minister just needs to do his job, and he's failed to do that.
The Prime Minister really hammering home the same message that motorists, particularly in the cities, shouldn't be taking more fuel than they need, saying that is at the heart of the current fuel crisis. Anne.
Isabel Mullen with the very latest from Canberra. Thank you, Izzy. Donald Trump has made an unexpected move, criticising Israel for a strike on a gas field in Iran. Live to our Europe correspondent, Jacqueline Robson in Tel Aviv. Jackie, the president put out an angry post saying the US knew nothing about the attack.
Yes, and the US president made it clear that Israel's strike on the world's largest natural gas field had nothing to do with America. The hit on Iran's South Pars gas field first drew sharp criticism from Qatar, given it shares that northern end of the facility, but then came Tehran's retaliation, sending missiles into the LNG facilities, causing fires and damage. Qatar said it reserves the right to retaliate, officials reportedly rushing to the phone, demanding to know if the US had prior knowledge. Donald Trump posting on Truth Social, ordering Israel not to strike the Iranian facility again, but if Tehran continued its attacks on Qatar, the US would massively blow up the entirety of the Iranian South Pars gas field with more power than ever seen before, adding he would authorise it if the LNG sites came under more fire. Now, all of this comes as Israel took out another big scalp of the Iranian regime, the intelligence minister, while thousands turned out for a funeral procession for the security chief, Ali Larijani. And among all of this chaos, the Iranian female soccer team returned home following the Asia Cup in Australia. They were adorned with flower garlands, with just 2 players now remaining in Australia seeking asylum. But as some of the foreign ministers were meeting in Riyadh to discuss this war, Saudi Arabia also came under Iranian attack. Officials there saying that the strikes, or at least attempted strikes, on its energy infrastructure was akin to blackmail. Anne.
Jacqueline Robson joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you, Jackie. Carl Sandilands has broken cover, telling 7 News he intends to fight for his $200 million radio contract that was torn up. He says he wants to clear up misconceptions, but at the moment his hands are tied. Tom Saker reports.
Well, late this morning, Carl Sandilands left his home here in Vaucluse in his car with his wife Tegan, speaking to us exclusively for the first time since he was officially sacked by his now former employer, ARN. The termination of his contract happened only yesterday. He said he does not accept it and will plan to fight it. It will be an extraordinary legal case which could stretch on for years. He and his former co-host, Jackie O. Henderson, are now chasing the remaining $88 million each that's left on their contracts. Take a listen to what Kyle had to say earlier this morning. A lot of people obviously keen to know what your future is.
Yeah, we're all keen. I'm keen to know as well.
Yeah.
We haven't. As far as I'm concerned, we're challenging the termination or the breaking of the contract, and we'll go from there.
Now, Sandilands took off down the road before we could ask him about the radio survey ratings, which was released today and which shows Kyle and Jackie O's final stint on air was yet another successful survey period. They were beaten only in Sydney by 2GB's Ben Fordham. In Melbourne, however, Kyle and Jackie O's show came in a dismal 8th place yet again. Overall, ARN, Kyle and Jackie O's former employer, suffered a major blow after moving Gold 101.7's Jonesy and Amanda from breakfast to drive. Smooth FM took top spot overall and 2GB ratings lifted as well, but ARN lost a huge chunk of its audience, about 60,000. The next survey period will be the most interesting one to see what happens without Kyle and Jackie O. As Kyle said to us, he's certainly not stressed at all.
Amber Laidler joins us now with the latest on our weather. Hi there, Amber. We've seen glimpses of sunshine today.
Good afternoon. And yeah, those clouds have been pretty persistent, but we have seen the sunshine breaking through at times. This is how the day played out on the harbour. More decent stretches of blue skies emerging as the afternoon went on. But elsewhere across Sydney and the Hunter, we have severe isolated storms developing. Warnings are in place right across parts of the Sydney Basin for those zones there in yellow and in red. Heavy rainfall is is the main concern. 38 millimetres fell in just 30 minutes at Bankstown Airport before 1 p.m. Since 9 a.m. though, 53 mils has been recorded there. 38 mils falling today at Lucas Heights, 27 in the gauge at North Ryde. The forecast is showing there is plenty more wet weather to come. Exactly what's in store and the latest details on those warnings are coming up in your full forecast soon, Anne.
See you then, Amber. Coming up after the break, the state and federal governments clash over how to tackle illegal tobacco. Olympic cyclist Rowan Dennis makes a controversial social media post. And a youth nightclub at the centre of a deadly disease outbreak.
Tonight on 7 News, fuel relief's here. 7 News are helping with a 20k fuel giveaway. We're giving you a chance to win a $250 gift card every night all week.
Fire has broken out inside a 3-storey building under construction in Western Sydney. Crews were called to St Mary's around 2 a.m, finding smoke pouring out. They brought the blaze on the first floor under control before it could spread. No one was inside at the time and it's not believed to be suspicious. The federal government's launching a fresh crackdown on the illegal tobacco trade, expanding police surveillance powers and threatening lawbreakers with tougher penalties. But our own Premier, Chris Minns, believes slashing the tobacco excise is the way to go. Taylor Rakin reports.
It's the booming black market trade that has state and federal governments in a bind, and now a new divide has emerged over how to tackle the growing illegal tobacco trade. In a speech to the National Illicit Tobacco Symposium, Assistant Minister Julian Hill revealed 50 to 60% of all tobacco products sold were now illegal, funding an organised crime crisis.
Anyone who tried to deny that Australia has a massive problem with illegal tobacco is either deluded or lying.
Also blowing a hole in federal revenue from the tobacco excise, expected to only bring in a third of its $12.2 billion in revenue this financial year. Determined to stem the tide, the federal government has announced new enforcement measures, including tripling all jail time and seizing powers for unexplained wealth.
More rapidly taking their profits, their cars, their cash, their boats, their toys.
But New South Wales Premier Chris Minns isn't convinced, calling on the federal government to cut the tobacco excise to reduce cost as a driver towards illegal tobacco.
But ultimately, this is all being driven by a federal government tax that is not working.
The federal government ruling out any changes to the excise for now, believing stronger enforcement is the way to tackle illegal tobacco.
Rowan Dennis has sparked controversy, posting on social media for the first time in almost 2 years. The Olympic cyclist, who received a suspended sentence over a driving incident that killed his wife, posted this picture of a Porsche on his Instagram account. The caption reads, "What an absolute weapon." His wife, fellow Olympian Melissa Hoskins, died when he struck her with a ute during an argument. He was found not criminally responsible. A deadly meningitis outbreak has health officials on high alert in the UK. It's believed to have started in a nightclub in Kent. A cluster of 20 cases has been identified and 2 people, high school student and 21-year-old university student, have died after contracting the virus. A mass vaccination drive is underway with thousands of students lining up to receive the jab. The window for preparing is closing as Cyclone Narelle moves quickly towards far north Queensland, packing 250 km/h wind gusts. It's expected to cross a remote stretch of the coastline as a Category 5 storm tomorrow morning. Jade Richards reports from Cooktown.
Here in the Cookshire, people and communities are no stranger to wild weather, but this system promises to be far beyond what they're used to. The Queensland Premier is warning if Cyclone Narelle crosses the coast as a Category 5 system, it will be the first time that's happened here in more than 100 years.
Your windows to prepare and take action are closing, and they're closing quickly.
Narelle intensified to a Category 5 earlier today. She's forecast to cross the coast around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and pass directly over Cowan, a remote community home to about 400 people. They'll start experiencing powerful winds as early as tonight, but by tomorrow morning they'll be very destructive.
The type of wind that is being predicted is the sort of thing that will blow apart sheds, that will blow caravans down roadways and create fields of airborne debris.
After the wind, the rain and the storm surge, with the crossing likely to coincide with high tide. Cooktown is south of where Narelle is predicted to cross, but still in the warning zone. Water police spent the morning checking on boaties, telling them to move their vessels to a better protected spot before taking shelter on land.
No one has insurance during a cyclonic event, even though you might be fully insured other times. So yeah, we'll stay on board our vessels this evening and just try and mitigate anything that could go wrong. Extra
police, paramedics and swiftwater rescue crews have been stationed across the Cape communities. Officers have again been going door to door, noting who's sheltering where and making sure everyone has sufficient supplies.
Do you guys have much food and water?
Once Narelle makes landfall, she'll keep moving quickly, expected to cross to the Gulf of Carpentaria coast near Arakoon by tomorrow evening. Here in Cooktown, it was busier earlier today, but as the weather has turned, it's become more deserted and will likely stay that way until Narelle crosses.
Thanks, Jade. Still ahead on 7's Afternoon News, a woman dead after a gondola crashes to the ground. Qantas makes a major change to international travel. In sport with Matt White, a rugby league training scare at St George Illawarra, and the AFL's Giants share secrets with 2 rugby league stars. That's next.
On 7 News Sydney, live at 6, Costco versus Grossco, Sydney's new grocery challenger taking on the American giant.
The most exciting part, we are saving a lot.
Memberships, bulk discounts, where to bag the best savings. On 7 News Sydney, live at 6.
Good afternoon. In 7 News at 6, it's happening. Sydney petrol stations running out of fuel. Popstar charge, drug busts from Earlwood to Potts Point. Deadly tragedy, a gondola crashes down a mountain. Not emotional, just annoying. Our exclusive chat with Kyle Sanderlands and a Penrith discount store taking on Costco. 7 News at 6.
Let's go to sport now with Matt White, and a nasty scare for the Dragons today, Matt.
Yeah, definitely scary, this one. And rising forward, Loco Pacifici Tonga was taken to Wollongong Hospital after suffering a neck injury at training. The 20-year-old stayed on the ground after a routine tackle and complained of a potential neck issue. An ambulance was called and he was transported to hospital for scans. Now, this afternoon, those scans cleared the young prop of serious injury. He'll be monitored by Dragons medical staff over the coming days and may even play on Sunday against Parramatta. Pacifici Tonga made his NRL debut last year, but is yet to play a first-grade game this season. Benji Marshall says Jerome Luai is finally finding his groove at the West Tigers. Luai delivered his best performance for the joint venture in last week's win over the Cowboys, revelling in his preferred position of 5'8".
Not having to control the game has probably helped him a lot. So we're happy to see him smiling because he's got a lot of raps for what he's done off the field for us, and to be able to get those raps for what he's done on the field, really happy with that.
Marshall ruled out making a play for disgruntled Bulldog Bronson Sherry. Giants coach Adam Kingsley has resisted the temptation to swing the axe after their dismal 81-point loss to the Western Bulldogs. Kingsley is backing the same players to put in a vastly improved performance against St Kilda at NG Stadium this Saturday.
I don't think we need to make a scapegoat out of any of our players, so I trust them to give the kind of effort that we expect here at the Giants.
And Parramatta halves Mitch Moses and Jonah Pezzett watched training today, sat in on a team meeting as well to see how it's done in the rival code. The enormity of the challenge facing the Matildas in the Asian Cup final was on full display in Sydney last night. Tournament favourites Japan booked the remaining spot in the decider with a brutal 4-1 demolition job on South Korea. In 5 matches, Japan has polled on 28 goals and conceded only 1.
Quite ruthless, so I don't look at them and see a nice team. They might be smiling. In the moment, they can be ruthless and take no prisoners.
The final is at Stadium Australia on Saturday night. And announcing his Socceroos squad for this month's friendlies against Cameroon and Curacao, Tony Popovic took aim at former Sydney FC player Adrian Segicic. Tired of waiting for his first Aussie cap, the 22-year-old defected to Croatia. But Popovic is unfazed, insisting he'll never sell the Socceroos shirt.
Should I promise a player at 20 or 21 that he has to play, and if they don't, I have to fear that he will leave? It's probably better for Adrian that he's gone.
The games in Sydney and Melbourne are our last on home soil before the World Cup in North America. And in the Champions League on aggregate, Barcelona also advanced, thumping Newcastle United 8-2, iterating that young Dragons players, OK, may even play this week.
Goodness.
So always good to have good news, right?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that, Matt. Coming up on 7's afternoon news, police probe a suspicious blaze after a youth centre goes up in flames. A wife accused of running down her husband with a car found guilty of his death. A tragic snow accident, one dead in a cable car collapse. And a medical breakthrough helping detect one of our leading causes of death.
Staycation Nation, the Aussie hotspot's booming right now. Why there's never been a better time to holiday at home. Plus, the new Big Little Lies. The stars of Hollywood's latest murder mystery are on Sunrise. Start with Sunrise.
Live from Sydney, this is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Welcome back. These are our top stories on 7. Gun scare at a Rose Bay High School. A student in custody accused of shooting a peer with a BB gun. The Premier calls for calm, saying increased demand is what's causing Sydney petrol stations to run dry. Donald Trump lashes out at Israel for striking a gas field in Iran, claiming the US was kept in the dark. Carl Sanderland speaks exclusively to 7 News, confirming he's challenging his radio axing. Returning to our top story now, attacks on major gas hubs in the Middle East have sent oil prices skyrocketing, with fears Sydney petrol prices could jump even higher. Some service stations have run dry, which Anthony Albanese has blamed on increased demand. Federal Fuel Supply Task Force Coordinator has been appointed to work with the states and territories to ensure Australia has a contingency plan. This message from the Prime Minister earlier today.
I want to assure Australians at this time that Australia is well prepared. Our fuel supply is currently secure. However, I want us to be over-prepared. Today, the Commonwealth has appointed Anthea Harris, who joins me here, as the Fuel Supply Task Force Coordinator to support coordination across governments and sectors. And there will be an agreement from every state and territory will appoint someone to work with Ms Harris to make sure that we maximise the coordinated effort during this time. My message to Australians is please do not take more fuel than you need. There is not less fuel in Australia today than there was 3 weeks ago. Every single ship that was due to land here has landed here. My government will be announcing more measures to prepare the nation for supply chain challenges over coming days and weeks.
Australia's unemployment rate has risen over February, according to the latest data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the figure reaching 4.3% over the month, up from 4.1% in January. It defies predictions from some economists who had forecast the figure would remain steady. A woman accused of running down her ex-husband with a car and killing him has been found guilty of manslaughter. Samantha Hooker was inconsolable when the verdict was read out in court. Leonie Ryan was there.
Good afternoon. Well, Samantha Hooker could not compose herself when told the jury had reached a verdict. They had only been out for a few hours before coming back with a decision. She had to be held up by a support person while waiting in the dock and collapsed and started sobbing when they found her not guilty of murder but guilty on the lesser charge of manslaughter, a charge she had already pleaded guilty to but not accepted by the prosecution at the start of the trial. It was in 2023 Hooker struck her ex-husband Peter Hooker with her car at Schofields. Security video showed them arguing on the street before the victim walked away. She followed him in her vehicle before mounting a garden and hitting him, throwing him into a brick wall. He did not die immediately. He was on life support and died days later from an infection in hospital. The trial heard their marriage was one plagued by domestic violence. The court heard Peter was abusive and repeatedly cheated on the offender. He was an alcoholic alcoholic, and if she refused to have sex with him, he would grab her by the throat and pin her down. Samantha Hooker's bail was continued today. Samantha, did you want to say anything about the verdict? But she will return to this same court next week, where the prosecution is seeking to have her bail revoked and for her to be taken into custody ahead of her sentence, which will likely happen in the coming months.
Thanks, Leonie. Police suspect foul play after a youth centre in the Queensland city of Toowoomba was gutted by fire. The nearly 60-year-old PCYC was engulfed in flames, and it took firefighters around 3 hours to put them out. Some residents reported waking to the sound of exploding glass. A man in his 20s is being questioned over the fire. A Sydney rock star has been swept up in police raids on an international drug syndicate. Azaria Byrne, who once starred in reality TV show Pop Stars, was among 9 people arrested. Clementine Cuneo reports.
A rock and roll frontman has just been refused bail, accused of running a major drug manufacture and supply ring, which even extended offshore. Azaria Byrne was arrested at his Earlwood home yesterday, along with his 28-year-old girlfriend, Brooke Mitchell. Police allege the pair was supplying large commercial quantities of prohibited drugs, participating in a criminal group and dealing with proceeds of crime. Following their arrest, police raided a Leichhardt studio run by Byrne, where they allegedly found a secret room used for drug manufacture. Detectives seized more than $5 million worth of drugs and thousands of dollars in cash. 7 other people were also arrested and charged for their alleged involvement in the drug ring, including 33-year-old Oliver Dibley, who is largely based in the United States. Police today saying the arrests were months in the making after an investigation that started in August.
It has taken a large number of detectives and investigators extensive man hours to get this to where it was. We've left nothing unturned. They have been tireless in the work that they've conducted.
While 9 people so far have been charged over this alleged drug ring, police say more arrests are likely.
A tragic accident in the Swiss Alps when a cable car plunged down a slope and claimed the life of a woman. The 61-year-old was the only occupant of the car when it came loose and tumbled down a snow-capped mountain. Paramedics tried to save her, but she died at the scene. Strong winds were reported in the area, and authorities are looking into why the cable car was still running in dangerous conditions. Top Trump officials have been grilled about decisions leading up to the Iran war. They've been hauled before the US Senate for the first time and made to explain shifting claims about why they chose to strike Iran. US correspondent Rob Scott reports.
As the war with Iran enters its 3rd week, top White House intelligence officials have been grilled by a US Senate committee, the first time they've testified publicly since the war began. Questioned over the Trump administration's shifting and often contradictory claims about the rationale behind America's decision to strike.
If left unimpeded, yes, Senator, they would have the ability to range missiles to the continental U.S.
Under fire, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
The regime in Iran appears to be intact but largely degraded due to attacks on its leadership and military capabilities.
Her testimony coming just a day after the resignation of Joe Kent, the head of the National Counter-Terrorism Centre, who in his resignation letter wrote Iran posed no imminent threat to America. Gabbard, who is friends with Kent and has long opposed US intervention in the Middle East, was asked whether she believed Iran posed an imminent nuclear threat.
The only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
In her printed opening statement published before today's hearing, the director wrote Iran's nuclear enrichment program had been obliterated after the US bombed key sites last year, and that there'd been no effort since then to rebuild. But when she testified today, she left those parts out.
You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir, I recognize that the time was running long and I skipped through some of the portions.
Tulsi Gabbard also wouldn't back up claims from Donald Trump that no experts had predicted Iran would retaliate to US strikes by attacking its neighbours in the Middle East, refusing to say whether she'd briefed the president about that possibility, despite the fact that Iran had openly talked about that in the past.
Could detecting Alzheimer's be as simple as using a nasal swab? New research out of America's Duke University seems to point to yes. A team of doctors and scientists have been using a small brush to reach the back of a patient's nose in an area near the brain. The cell tissue is then analysed for early signs of the disease.
The act of taking the swab or biopsy is pretty easy. And the analysis that we've been able to do on these biopsies does show that changes are definitely detectable, early.
Dementia is one of Australia's leading causes of death. Drugs approved in recent years have been shown to help slow the progression of Alzheimer's, but they are most effective when started in early stages. Still ahead in Sydney's afternoon news on 7, Qantas makes big changes for Jetstar passengers flying overseas. Danish royals head back to Queen Mary's hometown. It's 23 degrees in Manly, but 26 in the water.
On 7 News Sydney, live at 6, Costco versus Grossco. Sydney's new grocery challenger taking on the American giant.
The most exciting part, we are saving a lot.
Memberships, bulk discounts, where to bag the best savings. On 7 News Sydney, live at 6.
A royal homecoming is well and truly underway in Hobart as Tasmanian-born Queen Mary returns to her hometown. Laura Turner is there. Hello, Laura. Royal fever has certainly taken over the waterfront.
There are little girls dressed as queens and princesses everywhere. I want to show you, first of all, along the waterfront, everyone here is in readiness for the King and Queen, their own Mary, coming home. She's just minutes away. She's apparently on the ferry from Mona as we speak. I want to introduce you to Wendy, though. She's Hobart through and through, and she tells me she actually once had a beer with the soon-to-be king. Didn't you, Wendy?
I did.
What happened?
Yes. Well, we were at Wimbledon in 2003, and there was quite a long rain delay, and we were ushered into the balcony area at Wimbledon, and there was Frederick and his minder, and so we enjoyed probably half an hour or so having a drink with him.
And what was he like?
He was charming.
Yeah,
very
Prince Charming.
So.
Well,
Yes,
there you
Prince
go.
Charming.
And what
yes.
kind of a beer does King Frederick like?
I can't remember, but I'm sure it was a Danish one.
Well, thank you for today's going to be very exciting for you.
It
then.
is exciting.
Do you think he'll remember you?
I don't think so.
Well,
I was the old lady having a beer with him, you know.
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, he did meet his future queen in a pub.
Well, his future queen was still in Denmark.
Right.
He'd left her behind.
Okay. Well, very exciting day here for Tasmania, isn't it, to have her come home?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, lovely.
A few minutes away. We're very excited, and this is after a whistle-top tour of Australia, of course. She has ticked a lot off today, spent a lot of today on a boat, would you believe, actually held a lobster. She's brave, our Queen Mary, but minutes away from here, and it's pumping, I've got to tell you. They're very excited.
Yes, we can see that, Laura. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Laura Turner there, live in Hobart. Well, thousands of Jetstar passengers will soon be locked out of Qantas lounges under a new rule change. From July, Qantas Club members, as well as Gold and Platinum frequent flyers, will have their lounge access blocked when flying Jetstar on international routes. There are exceptions, including higher-priced fares and top-tier members, but for many travellers, it's back to waiting at the gate. The local share market has suffered another day of steep losses after attacks on a major gas field in Qatar caused a surge in oil prices. Michael McCarley from ING Bank has more.
Good afternoon. The Aussie share market has fallen to a 4-month low, shedding 142 points or 1.7%, taking hits from all directions today. Wall Street dived sharply overnight after the Fed called for restrictive interest rates as the US battles its own inflation problem, disappointing investors who were banking on rate cuts to boost the economy. That set the tone for the ASX 200, tumbling upon opening as 8 out of 11 sectors flashed red. Energy stocks rose as drone strikes hit major infrastructure infrastructure in the Middle East, sending oil prices soaring above $110. Higher fuel prices helped local oil refiner Viva Energy rocket 15% as today's best performer. The material sector struggled on concerns that the war will slow the global economy, with gold miners the worst performers after another fall in the price of the precious metal. Westgold Resources slid 13%. To top it all off, February's jobs data surprised investors. While unemployment increased to 4.3%, the number of jobs added last month was double what was expected, keeping the chances of another rate hike in May firmly on the table. And in currency markets, the Aussie dollar is losing ground, currently buying 70.4 US cents.
Our 6 p.m. news is coming up with Angie Asimus and Michael Usher. Hi there, Angie. What's on the program?
Hello, Anne. Tonight, major developments in the Middle East as Donald Trump turns on Israel. At 6, why the president says this attack on an Iranian gas field went too far, slamming Israel for keeping him in the dark. And annoyed, Kyle Sandilands happy to speak to 7 News. Tonight, the Axed star's confidential plans as the latest radio ratings confirm the Kyle and Jackie O show went out on a high. Western Sydney's bulk buying boom. Now there's a new player in the market, a Penrith superstore, taking it to giants like Costco. The savings on offer and what shoppers should know. Arncliffe at the centre of the government's latest plan to fix the housing crisis. 800 homes, brand new and affordable, when they'll be ready. And you're invited to the prom, a front row seat to big laughs inside Leichhardt's new theatre. And we will have all of that and plenty more for you in Sydney's 7 News at 6 o'clock.
See you then. Thank you, Angie. The Australians' rich list has been revealed for 2026. Mining magnate Gina Rinehart once again came out on top with an estimated fortune of $41.6 billion. She was closely followed by real estate tycoon Harry Triguboff and paper and packaging boss Anthony Pratt. Clive Palmer and Canva founder Cliff Obrecht rounded out the top 5. Former Seven chairman Kerry Stokes returned to the top 10, pipping Atlassian tech duo Scott Farquhar and Mike Cannon-Brookes, who have lost $35 billion between them this year. An entertainment spectacular has taken over Woolloomooloo Wharf this afternoon. Dubbed Sydney's longest lunch, the Sony Foundation's annual Wharf Award fundraising event is raising money to support young cancer patients. More than 1,000 guests attended, including some of the country's biggest music and TV stars.
This really supports the ability for youth cancer sufferers to get the treatment that they need in an environment where they feel comfortable.
The government can't pay for everything, so people here are stepping in.
Since launching in 2010, the campaign has raised more than $15 million. Next in 7's afternoon news, our hot shot of the day, Australia's oldest elephant enjoys her golden years. And Amber Laidler will be here with your latest forecast across Sydney and right around the country.
Tonight on 7 News, fuel relief's here. 7 News are helping with a 20k fuel giveaway. We're giving you a chance to win a $250 gift card every night all week.
Good afternoon. In 7 News at 6, it's happening. Sydney petrol stations running out of fuel. Popstar charge, drug busts from Earlwood to Potts Point. Deadly tragedy, a gondola crashes down a mountain. Not emotional, just annoying. Our exclusive chat with Kyle Sandilands and a Penrith discount store taking on Costco. 7 News at 6.
Amber's back with the forecast now. Now, what's the latest on those storms, Amber?
And warnings for the Sydney Basin have been cancelled for now, but they do remain in place nearby. Down past Picton at this stage, also up towards Newcastle, though we could see more developing into this evening. Heavy rainfall remains the main concern. It's been dry in the city for now, though, where it's currently hovering around 25 degrees and a moderate easterly breeze. Picking up the satellite image now, and low pressure and a very large area of instability that stretches from the Northern Territory down towards the country southeast is triggering showers and some storms. Heavier falls across eastern New South Wales as onshore winds also direct plenty of moisture towards the coast. Now, these conditions are forecast to persist at this stage until early next week. But taking a look around the capitals tomorrow, some more showers on the way for Brisbane too, and also Canberra, possibly a storm there tomorrow. 22 under cloudy skies in Melbourne, partly cloudy in Hobart, mostly sunny in Adelaide, a mostly sunny top of 34 degrees forecast in Perth. More wet weather also on the way for Darwin. Meanwhile, back in Sydney tomorrow, a partly cloudy 27 is the forecast top. There's a high chance of those showers, possibly a storm too during the morning and afternoon. The wet weather, though, is forecast to persist right through the weekend. That wet weather really not showing any stages of clearing until around next Tuesday. At this stage, it should remain warm, though. Temperatures set to hover a touch above average right through the week. Will likely be a bit humid at times. Your latest weekend outlook is coming up at 6 a.m.
Thanks a lot, Amber. Australia's oldest elephant is being given the royal treatment in her golden years. 53-year-old Asian elephant Mek Kapar journeyed from Malaysia to Melbourne, now enjoying her retirement at Werribee Open Range Zoo. When she's not busy guiding the younger elephants, Mek Kapar spends her days receiving massages, laser therapy, and even partakes in sleep studies to ensure she gets enough rest. And that's our 4 p.m. news for this Thursday. Your next bulletin is 7 News at 6. I'm Ann Sanders. Stay with 7 Now for the Chase Australia. Have a great night.